Hey everyone. So we're over 400 episodes in, and I have never done a rebroadcast of an old episode. I decided that I'm going to be taking the rest of this year off for the podcast, and we'll be releasing new episodes starting at the beginning of the year. We are reaching way back deep into the archives for this one with episode 8. I almost forgot that I did character voices on this episode. Enjoy.
ADHD reWired episode 8. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Okay, now let's get started. Welcome to episode number 8. Today, we are going to be talking about motivation. And I have to tell you, I'm actually really excited about today's episode because this is actually one of my favorite topics. Because understanding how motivation works is truly one of the keys to the kingdom of getting stuff done, especially when you have ADHD. Has anyone ever said to you that you're just not motivated? Or maybe even more likely, you've had the experience of just feeling like you aren't motivated. You know, it's amazing to me that we look at motivation as something related to your character, when in fact, just like really every other part of who we are, motivation is neurological. You know, for many of us who grew up without that diagnosis, our kind of diminished sense of motivation for anything that we were not interested in, we were called a 4-letter word, lazy. And we know that it's not about being lazy. It actually has nothing to do with laziness. In fact, we know through brain scans that the ADHD brain is working much harder than people without ADHD, especially when it comes to task-related behaviors that are maybe mundane or boring or require sustained attention. When we're thinking about this, we have to really understand both what ADHD is and what motivation really is, because we're not lazy. We are trying hard, and it's really frustrating when others around us, they just see the outside. They see the results, and they don't know how much we may be struggling and really working on achieving the things that maybe for other people come by a lot easier, but not for us with ADHD. The fact is that we know ADHD is not a behavior disorder. It's neurological. And even if you don't have ADHD, understanding the neurological components of motivation are going to help you actually get more done. And when you can learn workarounds for finding the motivation, it's truly opening up a gate that's going to help you succeed. It's opening up pathways for opportunities, understanding how your brain works, and then working with it. Sometimes when you have ADHD, it can feel like when you're trying to find that motivation, it can kind of feel like, trying to find that needle in the haystack, except you're not even looking at the haystack. You're just thinking about the haystack. So you're not getting anything done, but you're thinking about it. That's a motivational issue, but not in the way that we tend to think about it. What is motivation? Is it that part of us that just gets up and gets us to do stuff? Is it that drive? Well, yes, on a behavioral level, that's what we see. We know it when we feel it, and we also know it when we lack it. Everyone else who seems to notice when we lack it too, and when they make those negative comments and give us those judgmental looks, it's clearly from a lack of understanding. This is one of the reasons I am doing this podcast, because as an adult with ADHD, I have had more than my fair share of failures, and I've also had my fair share of successes. I know that when you understand how your brain works, when you understand what ADHD is all about, you can begin to understand to create those strategies that are going to work for you. It's not about trying harder. It's about doing things differently. I want to help you understand a little bit about how motivation works in the brain. Say hello to my little friend, Dopamine. Well, we're kind of on again and off again friends. He seems to come around at the honest times. He's so unpredictable. I wish he would just show up more frequently, more consistently. Well, just like sometimes you might have to entice our friends to get together, so too is the same with dopamine. Dopamine, meet frontal cortex. Frontal cortex, meet dopamine. Frontal cortex is the director. It's the brain's CEO and CFO. In other words, it's the chief executive functioning officer of our brain. It's in charge. It directs our behaviors and our thoughts and feelings. It helps us remember what we should do and when we should do it. Our frontal cortex also helps us put on the brakes and is able to keep in mind the rewards and consequences at the right time to activate or inhibit our actions. I think it's time you guys had a talk. All right, ADHD rewired listeners, you guys are in for a very special treat. This is, for the very first time in studio, a play with two actors, both played by me. First role is frontal cortex. The second character is dopamine. I tell you this will be a treat because this will either help you understand the process of how the brain and motivation works, or you are going to be laughing at me and not even getting to the end of this podcast because you can't stand to listen to it anymore. So, here we go. Dopamine, where have you been? Sorry, I got distracted around the temporal lobes. All that fidgeting your body has been experiencing. Yeah, well, sorry about that. And sorry about not coming up to you during last week's nuclear meltdown. There was all kinds of activity going on in the amygdala, and I couldn't even get through to you. I really tried, I did. I just couldn't get through. Huh, that's funny. I don't even remember that. So, what should we do today? You tell me. I'm just here to help you get stuff done. You make the decisions around here, though. Yes, that is true. I certainly do make the decisions around here. But it just seems like I can't get anything done when you're not around. What are you talking about? You get plenty of stuff done. You only see what I get done when you're around. When you're not around, that's a whole nother story. Wait, so when I'm not hanging around, you just sit and twiddle your thumbs, stare at the wall, and play Candy Crush? Is that what you're telling me? It's not like I do that on purpose. It's just the way it works. Believe me. I wish I could get more done when you're not around. I just can't. Can't you just use willpower? You mean no one has told you yet? Told me what? Dopamine, you are what powers my will. You are my willpower. Don't you know that? That's a big responsibility to have. Don't you think that could be a problem? I know I'm not that dependable. Well, I have some good news. I've been learning some strategies, and I think I have a few tricks that we could use so you stay around longer and more consistently. Dopamine, I want to go look at my to-do list, check my calendar, make a 5-year plan, go back to college, write a book. We could save the world. Me and you. Let's do it. But first, I have a toilet to clean, more bills to pay, a phone call to return, and I know exactly where I'll start. Let's go, Dopamine. Me and you. Let's get it done. This just feels so good that I think I want to have... I think I want to have serotonin around. Let's call serotonin. Shall we? Okay, so I'm pretty sure that I just lost my entire listenership. Oh my, that was interesting. Yeah, I can't even keep a straight face to keep going right now. So, okay, here we go. Maybe that helped explain a little bit about the relationship between motivation and dopamine, that I'm motivated to just be a dope in front of the microphone, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So here's what we're going to get into. We know that, okay, we're going to get kind of serious here. Well, not too serious. Come on. How can you get too serious after what I just did? So here's the thing. Motivation is neurological. It has to do with brain chemistry. We know that the part of... Okay. We know the parts of our brain that release dopamine throughout the different areas of the brain that involve our intentional control of our behavior and our movement. Also regulates how we express our emotions, as well as how sensitive we are to rewards. You know, there is a saying that, you know, people with ADHD are experiential learners. The only problem is they don't always learn from their experiences. And all of this is because of the neural networks of our brain and how we learn and how we don't learn. So when we respond to rewards, that's a neurological process. And it's related to the same areas of our brain that help us with memory and with our future memory, meaning keeping in mind what we need to do in order to achieve the things that we want to get in the future. You know, some other things that increase dopamine in our brain, just to give you an idea, is eating when we win something, having sex, not all at the same time, of course. Well, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to keep going. So what I want to do is share with you some brain-wise strategies that can really help your dopamine communicate with your frontal cortex. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to say the word dopamine again without wanting to break into my little accent and talk very prestigious as a conductor of the orchestra would. Okay, let's get serious now, guys. Come on, here we go. Are you ready? We're going to get very, very serious. Oh, man. All right. I told you this was going to be a fun show. The strategies that I'm going to share with you are great for all of us, both with and without ADHD. The thing is, when you have ADHD and you want to be successful, because you really can be successful when you have ADHD, you have to use these strategies. You can't go through life on autopilot because our autopilot switch doesn't work. And the more we keep pushing that button for autopilot, the more we crash and burn because it's not connected to anything. Here are a bunch of different tips and strategies. I think I have 9 or 10, but if you've been listening to past episodes, you know how I typically do with lists. Wait, where did my list go? Off to a good start with my list. But here we go. I want to help keep the motivational ball rolling. So here are my tips. Number 1, visualize what the reward is. Now, don't just keep it in your mind because that's a very unreliable place. So if you know what it is that you are trying to work for, whether it's something tangible or an idea of something, have a way to create an actual picture and print it out or draw it and put it in a place where you're going to see it frequently. Ideally, it's in a place that you're going to see when you are likely to need that reminder. For example, if you have a lot of work to do and you tend to get distracted, say on Facebook, put a visual reminder on your computer screen of what the reward is that you're trying to work for. Truly externalize the visualization of what it is that you're trying to work towards. Number 2 is use a star chart. We all know that star charts can be for kids, but they can also be for grown-ups. Using a star chart is effective, I think, for a number of reasons. Because one, it's graphical. We can see it. It's tangible. We all like to see the progress we are making in something. If we want to be intentional about something that we are trying to do, we have to externalize it. Now, I used a star chart a few years ago when I was trying to increase my flossing behavior. And so what I did is I created a star chart and I had 3 pages worth of this, and I had 2 lines per week. So what I would do, I had a goal. I first started with, I think, 3 days of the week, then 4, then 5, then 6 days of the week. And each week, my goal was to floss 6 out of 7 days of the week. There were times that I did it 7 days of the week, but I wanted to feel successful, and I don't believe in 100% goals because I think that they set ourselves up for failure. So this was a goal that I set for myself. It was a 3-month goal. And it turned out that what I found was most reinforcing was not the incentive or the reward that I was kind of focusing on, which was I wanted to buy myself a surround sound theater system. We were going to have our son was going to be born within a year. And I knew that after our son was born, I don't get to buy any toys for myself. So this was something that I was going to buy anyways. So I connected it to a behavior that I really wanted to improve upon. So what I actually found the most rewarding was I put this chart in my bathroom upstairs and I taped it to the mirror. And the best part of it was, and I made all these kind of cheesy flossing jokes. I wrote in the box that says that I did it. Then my wife would actually make a comment underneath it. And that happened on a daily basis. And that was what I actually found most reinforcing and rewarding. So make a chart and visualize it. And one of the other reasons that I think that works is it's kind of funny. You don't always think about adults using star charts. And maybe that's just my sense of humor, but it worked for me. And above everything else, do what works. Okay. All right. Number 3, use small, short-term rewards. This really captures what I was just talking about. This small, short-term term reward was the comment that my wife would make. So there was a social reward. Number 4, reward progress. Don't just reward yourself when you get to the end result. Reward the next step. That's so important so we don't feel defeated. Number 5, surround yourself with affirming people. This is critically important. Put yourself around people who are going to encourage you, who are going to believe in you, that are going to tell you, good job, because you know what? That's really important. Number 6, one of the best ways to get more dopamine in the brain and increase the availability of that is exercise. Exercise is huge. I can't tell you how much more productive I am on days that I exercise. And not just any kind of exercise, but cardio exercise. And this is also great during the day if you're feeling kind of blah. You know, we all get those moments where we're feeling blah. You can take a few minutes and just do some jumping jacks and get your heart racing. That is going to increase dopamine to your brain. Number 7, share what you are trying to achieve with somebody. That is also going to help with that social component to motivation. Number 8, create systems so you are actually less reliable on executive functioning. I don't have to worry about the motivation to pay my bills if I have my bills on auto pay. Okay, so those are part of the creating automatic systems in your life that make your brain less dependent. Let me try that again. When you create systems, your brain is less dependent on having to activate those tasks, which we tend to find boring. So outsource it. Number 9, do what you love. As an adult, that's so much easier. You know, when you do what you love, work doesn't feel like work. When you enjoy what you are doing, you're releasing dopamine right now. You know, there's a lot of work to putting and producing a podcast. And I love it. I'm enjoying this. This is fun. So do what you love. Number 10, do what you hate first. The thing that you don't want to do, you're never going to want to do it. If you wake up and you know you have 5 tasks to do and you look at a task and you say, oh, I don't want to do that, you're not going to want to do it after you achieve your other things either. Get that done first. You know, there's a story about if you start your day with eating a frog, everything else you do is going to be easier that day. So do the thing you want to do least first. Now, I will tell you, I think that there is an exception to that. If you're really stuck on getting something going, start maybe with one easy task, and then the following task should be that one that you want to do least. But again, do what works for you. And if what you're doing right now is not working and you're not doing this, consider this because it may work. The worst thing that happens is it doesn't work, but then you got to try something else. Number 11, and these are in no particular order. These are in the order of what came out of my brain. Number 11 is talk to a doctor about medication. We know that stimulant medication helps the flow of dopamine get to where it needs to go in the brain. Medication can be very helpful. Number 12, find a supportive accountability group. There is nothing to me that is more powerful than having other people who have a shared experience and a shared struggle, who are all working on the same kinds of stuff that we get to check in with. And number 13, learn more about ADHD. You know, when I went to my first CHAD conference, if you're not aware, CHAD is a organization. It's actually the largest organization for both children. It stands for Children and Adults with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And they hold an annual conference. This year's conference is in Chicago. So come meet me there, by the way. So, totally just lost my train of thought. So I was talking about learning about ADHD. So when I went to my first conference at CHAD, I went to it thinking that I was an expert on ADHD. I mean, after all, how old am I? I'm 33 years old, and so I have like 33 years of experience with ADHD, and I've read a book or two at that point, and so I thought I was an expert on ADHD. I went there and I realized how much I didn't know. that year, I did something that was very un-ADHD-like. I bought, 10, 15, I bought a huge stack of books at that conference. And what I did, which was very un-ADHD-like, I read all of them. And after that year of really just intensely diving in to understanding the ins and outs of ADHD from both a behavioral and a neurological level, I, at that point, felt comfortable calling myself an expert in ADHD. Now, it's kind of weird to refer to yourself as an expert. I think maybe referring to yourself as a specialist is one thing. It seems like feels better when someone else calls you an expert. But you know what? I spend so much of my time learning this stuff. My point that I'm trying to make, I think I'm trying to make a point. The point that I'm trying to make here is that year, I stepped up my game so much with ADHD because I understood it more. I understood the intricacies of it. And that's why when you're looking at treatment of ADHD, you're looking at education about ADHD. You know, it goes back to that saying, if you want to tame it, you have to name it. Taming the challenges that I had really involved taking a very deep dive into what was going on and working on it. So those are my 13 tips that you can use to help increase your motivation. So in a review, really quickly, visualize what the reward is. Number 2, use a star chart. Number 3, use small, short-term rewards. Number 4, reward progress. Number 5, surround yourself with affirming people. Number 6, exercise. Number 7, share it with somebody. Number 8, create systems so you are less reliant on executive functioning. Number 9, do what you love. Number 10, do what you hate first. Number 11, talk to your doctor about medication. Number 12, find an accountability support group and a coaching group. Number 13, learn more about ADHD.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you're a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tibbers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.